You're listening to Classic Sounds 107 FM, formerly Classic Rock 107, but now featuring your favorite sounds from the 70s and 80s. We just heard a 1200 baud modem connecting to CompuServe. Before that, a medley of coins going into a payphone. At the top of the hour, join DJ Teddy Ruxpin as he plays a 30-minute mix of Ford Pintos exploding. But first, questionable material with Jack and Brian. You are listening to Questionable Material with Jack Helmuth and Brian Sack. This episode, Destroying a Child's Love of Pizza, Real Celebrity Stories, Homeschool School.
Oh, so I had a very quick story. Unfortunately, this is COVID related, but I don't care. As soon as it happened, I knew I wanted to tell you on the podcast. So we have been super safe. We've been like overly cautious of all the families that we know around. I actually think we have been the safest. I think my wife and I are both taking things maybe almost to a little bit of an extreme, which is probably just a good thing. Mm-hmm. So we're just so careful with things. So we finally decide to get some takeout food because we've heard that this restaurant, this pizza place, just great wood oven pizzas, super yummy, local business. They've been super careful. They've been donating lots of pizzas to hospitals. They've been doing all this cool stuff. And so even though it makes us a little bit nervous to bring in cardboard because the virus could live on cardboard, supposedly, it makes us a little bit nervous to bring in this stuff from the house. We decided to get pizzas on Friday night. My son, super excited. It's his favorite pizza place. So we bring in the pizza boxes. We bring it to the disinfecting table so we can sort of wipe down the boxes before we open them up. And my son comes in. And we've been very clear about COVID and what it means. And, that our kids know without scaring them too much. We want them to be a little scared because we want them to be cautious. Mm-hmm. So my son comes in, sees the pizza boxes and gives them a big hug. So he gives them a big hug and then I freak out. I'm like, Jack, what are you doing? You can't be hugging things. All right. Here, lift up let me take off your glasses, put your hands in the air. I'm going to take your shirt off and then we're going to wash your hands. He's, oh, okay. Sorry, Daddy. Sorry. So we do that. I take his glasses off. I take off his shirt because, I'll get him a new shirt. And then I'm going to wash his hands. I set his glasses down. I look away I'm telling you 1 second to put his glasses down. I look back over and he's rubbing his eyes with his fingers, both eyes that he just hugged the pizza boxes, rubbing his eyes with both his fingers up. And I lit into this kid.
You've killed us. You've killed us.
That's why I just kept screaming. Right. You've done it. You finally killed us. Wow. I'm like, you just want my money? Is that what? And so I just started screaming. You just want my money? So I drove down to Chase and I withdrew all our money. And then I just threw it all in his face. Is this what you wanted? You want this? You want this? You can't wait 40 years for me to die? You just want my money? And he's crying. He's like, I don't understand. So I went down to the bank again, and I signed over the deed to the house to him, and I brought it back, and I'm like, here, it's your name, Jack the fourth.
Happy
Is this
now?
What you wanted? Yeah, happy now. Are you happy now? You own everything. And then it's just weird. Then I'm like, you want to sleep with my wife? Oh, is that it? You want to be with my woman? Oh, go ahead. Have at it.
Good. Well, that's not going to scar him emotionally.
Are you sure? Because no. I'm afraid it will.
I'm most certainly not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I was just being nice. I think you might have messed him up for life. He's never going to forget, and he's never going to hug pizza.
I know. That's the sad thing. When you and I were growing up, we could hug a pizza box.
Yeah. Didn't think about a virus shutting down my respiratory system.
Oh, God.
Then on the flip side, the gym I've been going to continued to charge everybody.
Now that's the club, like for the fancy club where they move your arms for you. Is that right? So they have an instructor on each side of you moving your arm sort of like a puppet. Is that right? They
have arm assistants and leg assistants to do the lifting for you.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
And like at a club like that, like how do they do things like treadmill?
Well, so you stand on the treadmill and they just kind of pull it underneath you.
Uh-huh.
And so, it gives you the illusion of moving.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
It fools my Apple Watch, which is what's important.
Oh, that is really nice. Yeah. What about things like old-fashioned workout, like push-ups, sit-ups? How do they assist you with that?
Well, you do a kind of a plank position, and they move the floor away from you and then towards you.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's really
you're not doing a ton of work. Yeah, It's easier on your muscles. It's easier on the muscles and stuff.
See, that's the thing that I hate about workouts is because it always makes my muscles so tired. Yeah, and I don't like that.
You can avoid that if you pay the higher tier at New York Sports Club.
That makes so much sense. And so what's the shower room, like the sauna shower room, the men's and women's locker room? What's that like at a club like that?
You have your own personal shower.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So it's like a locker. You rent a locker, you rent a shower, and we rent our shower inside the cabana is what they call it, which is like a small room with a high definition television set and a mini bar. And it has a shower. It's very nice and clean. And as soon as you leave the room, they lock it up.
Oh, so that's so nice.
It's a higher tier of service.
It really sounds like a higher tier. Now, at my New York Sports Club, they have like a vending machine where you can get like a bottle of water for $2 or something like that. What's the food and beverage situation at a club like yours?
It's whatever I asked Chico for.
Okay. I'm sorry. I should know this, but I don't because I don't have that sort of membership. Who or what is a Chico?
Well, with your cabana, you get a manservant, although now it's not PC to say manservant, so they call them person servant. And Chico is our person servant.
Is he a man?
He is a man.
That's weird. Okay.
So, and you basically, when I show up at the gym as he's dressing me, I can be like, Chico, I have a hankering for pineapple juice and some caviar. And then he'll be like, okay, Mr. Sack. And then he will while I'm doing the gym or the gym's doing me, he will run those errands.
Okay. Huh. Boy, it sounds like a really nice way to do things.
It really is. But I don't want to be charged $7,000 a month for myself and also $7,000 for my wife, for a gym I can't use.
Yeah, of course. That seems like, I'm going to be honest with you. That's like a mortgage for like a $2 million home. I mean, it seems like a steep amount of money to pay for a monthly gym membership.
I can't put a price on health.
Good for you for taking control of your body.
Thank you, Jack. I want to be healthy.
So, Brian.
Yes, Jack.
So you had told me that there's some sort of game going around social media or something.
Yeah.
Tell us what the game is and let's play it.
Yes. So on people have been tweeting this thing. Okay, list 5 celebrities you've actually met and one you haven't met, and your followers should guess which ones you've met and which one you haven't met, and then you explain the story of how you know these various or how you've met these various celebrities.
Love it.
So it sounds like a fun game. So people can kind of do okay, why would he know that celebrity? Like, how would he have met that that kind of thing?
Okay, great.
All right.
So let's play. Why don't you go first?
All right.
So you have 5 celebrities, and I'm going to guess which one is not true, and then you're going to tell the stories.
Okay. Eddie Murphy, Jack Lemmon, Michael Stipe, Bono, Dick Cheney, Steven Spielberg. So 5 of those I've met, 1 I haven't.
I know you've met Dick Cheney.
Damn it.
I know that's true. I feel like Michael Stipe is a person you would have met. That just feels like you. So I'm going to say you've met Stipe. Jack Lemmon is somehow there's something with your dad or whatever. There's a thing where you met Jack Lemmon. I'm going to say you met Jack Lemmon. And I'm even going to say you met Bono at some sort of charity because he's done enough charity things. And so I'm going to say you met Bono because that seems realistic. Eddie Murphy is the one that really stands out. Your very first one that stands out to me as something that and Steven Spielberg seems suspicious. I can't believe the amount of times we've talked about Steven Spielberg that like we just talked about his porn star daughter a couple episodes ago. And you didn't mention that you've met him. So those are the 2 that stand out suspicious to me. So I'm going to guess, you have not met Eddie Murphy.
Wrong.
No, what? You have met Eddie Murphy?
I have met Eddie Murphy.
Doggone it. So it's Spielberg. It's Spielberg, right?
Wrong.
No.
Yeah, I've met Steven Spielberg.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the answer?
The answer is Bono.
Ah, damn.
So now I have to tell you the story of how I met the people who you didn't think I met.
Okay, start with Eddie Murphy.
Okay, so Eddie Murphy. So this would have been 1989 in the summer. I was working on an interview crew for MTV.
Okay.
And out in Los Angeles. And I was basically a grip / sound guy. There were 3 or 4 of us on the crew, depending. And it was kind of a cool gig. We all went around and, followed orders and just basically interviewed various celebrities for MTV. So by virtue of that, I met a ton. But yeah, Eddie Murphy was one. And he was kind of a dick. He was pissed off at MTV. I don't remember why, but we were on the set of the video, My Girl Wants to Party All the Time. The music video. You remember that song? My girl wants to party all the time. And the best part of that was when they had all these models on the set and they just handed them these instruments like trombones and trumpets and various things for them to pretend to be playing. And you're looking at these beautiful women looking at these instruments they've never touched. They probably don't know how to, play, or they don't know what they are. What is this long one? And they're in the background of the video pretending to play these instruments. And then afterwards, we were supposed to meet Eddie Murphy, and we had been the first ones on set. So we kind of had the first dibs on interview, but he was pissed off at MTV and he made us wait to be the last. So he did his interview with everybody else, and then came to us and we had our little setup. We had a chair for him to sit in. We had everything set up. So, and he was very gruff, and I wired him with a microphone. And he was just, he wasn't very friendly. And then as soon as the lights were rolling and they started recording, hey, he was Eddie Murphy. And I remember it really struck me because I thought like, wow, to be a jerk and then to flip the switch and be, your character was really weird to me. So that's the Eddie Murphy story.
Yeah, the people like that can absolutely turn it on.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The on-off switch of a performer is amazing.
Yeah, it struck me as very strange.
Okay, I love it.
Steven Spielberg. This is a great story, and I can't believe I never told you this.
No, so close with Spielberg. Stay in order. I want to hear Jack Lemmon next.
Oh, Jack Lemmon. Okay, Jack Lemmon. You were correct. My father is the reason I met Jack Lemmon. So my father had a friend. This guy had a famous restaurant in Los Angeles. It was the restaurant became famous because the owner, Patrick, and it was where Wolfgang Puck got his start. The owner, Patrick, opened the restaurant and it had no phone number and no listing.
Okay.
And that, of course, made celebrities want to go there. Okay. So this was a good friend of my dad's. I followed when I was a teenager, probably 13. I went out to California with my dad on a business trip. And my father wanted to meet Patrick said, meet me at the restaurant. The restaurant with an unlisted phone number and no address and directory assistance. And mobile phones didn't exist.
Right.
So he doesn't know how to reach Patrick to find out where the damn restaurant is. So he calls the fire department. And the fire department told him the address of the restaurant.
Oh, that's funny.
So we go to the restaurant.
That's clever.
Yeah. And we went to the restaurant, and so Patrick seats us, and it was kind of like a tent. The restaurant was called Ma Maison. And it was a Wolfgang Puck's in the kitchen. It was kind of like a tent. And it was one of these places. It was the first place I'd eaten where the plate was like 25 inches wide.
Yep.
And then this tiny little piece of beef tenderloin was in the middle with like a tiny little smear of sauce up in the corner of, near on the edge of the plate. I'd never eaten like that before.
Of course.
And so I'm sitting with my dad, and Patrick is sitting with us, and we're chatting. And Patrick is a celebrity because he owns the restaurant that all the celebrities want to eat at. And so we're just sitting there, and Jack Lemmon walked over to the table and just wanted, he was very polite. He apologized for interrupting our conversation, and then proceeded to tell Patrick, how great, he loved the restaurant and thank you and blah, blah, blah. And then Patrick introduced us to Jack Lemmon, and then Joanna Carson came in, Johnny Carson's wife at the time. And they threw a big thing for her. There was like she had a birthday party. But
in fairness, back then, every 10th woman was a wife of Johnny Carson.
Exactly. But anyway, that's the Jack Lemmon story. Michael Stipe, I knew a guy who so he had a plane that Michael Stipe used. Michael Stipe chartered this guy's plane. And as a result, he had an in with Michael Stipe, and Michael Stipe used to have a Christmas party every year in Manhattan. And this guy would fly to Manhattan specifically to crash Michael Stipe's Christmas party and would always drag me along.
That's fun.
Yeah. So we went to Michael Stipe's Christmas party, which is probably why Michael Stipe stopped having them a few years later,
Right.
because it was a big scene. I mean, I met so many celebrities at this party. And then, spoke with him. But, I think, everybody there was famous, but me, my wife, and then the guy who dragged us there. Like,
That's cool.
Uma Thurman standing over there, and Paul Rudnick or Rudd, whatever, Paul Rudd, Daryl Hannah, like all these people everywhere. And then us, like we just didn't belong.
Right. And Quentin Tarantino creepily standing 3 feet behind Uma Thurman, just looking at her.
But
wow, that's fun. See, finding yourself in that situation is such a cool thing.
Yeah, but it did feel awkward. Like it was just kind of. I knew Michael Stipe didn't want us there. We weren't, but he was, he was being very pleasant to the guy who dragged us there, and was nice to us. But like we didn't belong there. This was like for his, A-list friends.
Yeah.
We should not have been there, and it felt awkward to me. But it was fun. I mean, I got to watch my wife tell Ethan Hawke he was too thin.
That's funny. Dick Cheney. So then years ago, they had me do a video there was a roast of Dick Cheney hosted by Commentary Magazine. And they were roasting Dick Cheney. And they did a video, and I played a character in the video that made a reference to him shooting his friend in the face. Sure.
And in retrospect, it was probably the only thing somewhat roast-like in the whole thing, because I actually got invited to the dinner. So I went to the dinner with my wife, and and it was not a roast of Dick Cheney. It was an ass kissing of Dick Cheney. Every single person, nobody said anything bad about Dick Cheney. They all got up there, and it was a who's who of those years. Donald Rumsfeld, he gets up there and does a big brown nosing session. Nobody was making it was not a roast. A roast, you're supposed to make fun of somebody. There was nobody was making fun of Dick Cheney. It was all like, oh, he was great to work with. He was just like, that's not a roast. This is just an honor, But so that was how, after the dinner, he was wandering around, and my wife really wanted a picture with him to send to her, mother back in Poland. And so we went up, and he was just, he was Dick Cheney. He's Dick Cheney.
That's exactly how you want him to be.
Yeah. No, he did not disappoint.
Yeah. All right. Steven Spielberg.
All right. Spielberg. This is great. So I was a film major, and my great aunt, Tilly, she had something to do with the board of trustees, or she was on some board at Brandeis University.
Mm-hmm. Brandeis
was giving Spielberg an honorary degree. So this was late 80s. My great aunt, she asked me, do you want to come to the ceremony? I'll introduce you to Mr. Spielberg. I'm like, well, of course. So we're driving to the event in Boston, and she goes, do you have anything you want to ask Mr. Spielberg? And I say very flippantly, yeah, I want to know if George Lucas drives a stick shift. Right?
Okay, sure.
And Brian making a stupid joke.
Yeah. So
we get to the thing. They have the honorary ceremony, the speeches, blah, blah, blah. He gets his degree, and then there's a receiving line, and she's talking to, I see her talking to Mr. Spielberg, and he's with Amy Irving at the time, his wife.
Yep.
And she's like, Brian, come here, Brian, come here. And she's like, Brian, I'd like you to meet Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, oh, very nice to meet you. And this is Amy. I'm like, nice to meet you too. And then she goes, Brian has a question for you.
Ouch.
And I said, no, I don't. And she goes, yes, you do.
Oh, gosh.
You told me in the car, you have a question for Mr. Spielberg.
Oh.
I said, no, I don't. She goes, yes, you did. You told me in the car. Go ahead and ask. And then he starts going, yeah, go ahead. Ask me. What's the question?
No,
what's the question?
No.
And I'm like, and she's like, you have a question. Ask him. What did you ask me in the car? And then Steven Spielberg, go ahead. Ask me. Ask me the question. And I'm just like, and I just was like, I don't have a question. I'm sorry. I don't have a question. So I felt like an idiot.
Oh, that's one of the most uncomfortable. I can't believe you've never told me that.
Yeah,
story.
You're right. I know. And it occurred to me weeks ago when we had done the Michaela Spielberg sketch. Yeah. Isn't that uncomfortable?
That is truly uncomfortable.
And the irony, he was my hero at the time. He's the reason I probably went to film school. Because like he was, an icon, and here I am, like, does George Lucas drive the stick shift? Dummy. Gosh. What a big dummy I am.
What a big dummy. Oh, that is really funny.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's awkward. Oh,
super awkward.
Man, we finished our episode last time with the awkward stories. Yeah. That's the most awkward story we've told. That's amazing. And now tell us your fake story of meeting Bono.
Yep. Never met Bono, although I did have a girlfriend in high school who worshipped him.
But where would you have met Bono had you met him?
I mean, when I was working for the MTV crew in LA, I mean, I met a ton of musicians. I met Young MC.
What?
Bust a move, sir.
That's huge.
Yeah, no, but probably then, because that was that was when I was very close to music industry people.
Now you were either going to become a young MC or a young filmmaker. Is that right?
That's right. He didn't inspire me as much as Steven Spielberg.
That's surprising to me. Okay.
Bust a move.
I mean, you should look at their body of work side by side and see. I think you'll see you made the wrong choice.
Girl comes up, you wish you could sex her, but you're standing on the wall like a little Poindexter. Bust a move.
You got to bust a move. You got to bust a move. You don't want to be a Poindexter.
Okay, shorty.
All right, you ready for my turn? Okay.
No, I think we've spent enough time on celebrities. Let's move on.
No, I have a list. Okay, and I have a slight twist because I'm going to describe the scenario in my thing. I'm going to describe the thing I did with the celebrity.
But isn't that giving away too much information?
No, because trust me.
Okay.
Number 1, I've gone clothes shopping with Maya Rudolph. 2, Harrison Ford bought me a beer and then barely talked to me. 3, I've cooked a meal with Emeril Lagasse. 4, this is the romantic section of the list. I've held hands with Jon Stewart. I felt up Brooke Shields. I dry humped Vince Vaughn. Those are 6.
All
Which
right,
one?
So you've given me 6. You went clothes shopping with Maya Rudolph.
Yep.
Harrison Ford bought you a beer and never talked to you.
Barely talked to me.
You cooked with Emeril Lagasse.
Yep.
You held hands with Jon Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
You felt up Brooke Shields and you dry humped Vince Vaughn. And 5 of those are true. 1 is not.
Correct.
Who is Maya Rudolph?
She's a cast member on Saturday Night Live and very talented comedian. She's a daughter of someone famous who did a very famous song.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
No, yes, that probably is true. She's Minnie Riperton's daughter.
Who?
Minnie Riperton, a famous singer. She's best known for the song "Lovin' You." Loving you is easy. That's her.
That one? Oh, okay. I know that song.
So anyway, I went.
La 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 la. La 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 la. Okay.
And somewhere in that section, she actually says Maya's name.
Well, let's see. So Maya Rudolph, SNL cast member.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And you had worked at SNL, so it makes sense that you would have gone clothes shopping with her.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that's true.
Okay.
Harrison Ford bought you a beer and didn't talk to you.
Barely talked to me.
Barely talked to you. So that seems like that might be true. Because of the added barely talk to you thing. Okay. Emeril Lagasse. Jon Stewart and you held hands. I'll buy that. I'll believe that. Comedy circles. People don't. Felt up Brooke Shields. Dry humped Vince Vaughn. I'm going to say felt up Brooke Shields. I guess, I mean, I could see a scenario where you did that. Although maybe you're trying to trick me with the Jon Stewart. Since I know your comedy background, maybe you didn't hold hands with him, but then you have friends, Daily Show people.
I need an answer, Brian.
Oh, boy. I'm going to say you didn't cook a meal with Emeril Lagasse.
You are wrong.
Damn it.
You are wrong. Harrison Ford never bought me a beer. I've never even seen him. He's like one of my all-time. There are only 2 celebrities that I'd get weak at the knees for, and he's one of them. And because I've never seen him or met him.
Really?
Yeah.
I told you he lived across from us, right?
I think about that every time I visit your apartment.
Really?
Yes.
So he's
a big deal to me.
For the listeners, so Harrison Ford had the penthouse apartment at this building across from us. And so my mother-in-law was visiting from Poland, and I mentioned that. And she grabbed a pair of binoculars and went to the roof of our building and then sat there and then comes down to report that she saw Harrison Ford making a sandwich.
That's amazing.
Well, it's also intrusive. I was like, oh my God, don't do that. But it was very funny.
So funny.
Yeah.
She makes a beeline for the roof.
Yeah. She's like, I'm out of here.
Stakes it out for 3 days until he finally makes a sandwich.
But
that's fantastic.
So, okay. Harrison Ford was a lie. Damn it. I thought because you love Star Wars so much that would have been possibly real. You tricked me with the little, he barely talked to me. That's what right. Sold me. Okay.
Exactly. That's what. And I figured you would have thought that it was a Saturday Night Live after party that he bought me a beer and then sort of went off. That's totally possible too. Yeah. That's why I was thinking that I could trick you with that. Yeah. Okay. So quickly, I will tell my stories. I was there when Maya Rudolph started as a cast member of Saturday Night Live. And she was she was so cool and so funny. And we sort of connected right away, even though she came in the middle of a season as a featured player and then obviously would go on to be a full cast member for 6 or 7 years after. And for some reason, she and I just clicked, and she needed to go shopping one day. And she asked me to come along, like a 24-year-old, 25-year-old doofus with no style. I mean, I would wear sweatshirts every day. So I go shopping with this beautiful, cool, funny lady. And she just is like a scene from Pretty Woman. She just kept coming out of the dressing room being like, well, what do you think about this one? And I'm like, I don't know. You're so pretty and everything. Yes, buy it all. So I was just really, really smitten with her in a professional way. She was such a cool lady. Harrison Ford, a lie. Emeril Lagasse, my friend was producing a show with Emeril, and the premise of the show was that he had to correct a food problem every episode. And my friend was like, oh, I've got the all-time great food problem guy ever. This guy only eats 5 things. Yeah. He just goes and to the same restaurant and orders the same sandwich. All this is true. It's about me. The episode was called Mr. Picky Palate. And Emeril Lagasse was going to show, he was going to expand my palate, not going too crazy. He wasn't going to give me, foie gras or something like that, but he was going to take some things, some elements of food that I like and expand my palate. So I flew down to Virginia to a Whole Foods, and we shopped together, and I told lots of jokes in the segment. And I cooked, a meal with Emeril, and then I ate it. It was delicious. Unbelievable. Really? So cool. Have you made it since? No. Really? Not at all. So you can only eat good food when a famous chef makes it for you? Yeah, it's amazing. These famous chefs are pretty good at cooking. Wow. Yeah. All right. So I cooked with Emeril. Bam. I've helped with Jon Stewart. In 1999, my boss at the time, Steve Higgins, the announcer on the Jimmy Fallon show, who was the producer at Saturday Night Live, had produced a show, Jon Stewart's MTV show. And Jon Stewart was going to do a special sketch on the 1999 Primetime Emmy Awards. And so he wanted Higgins to come over and produce it for him. So they came up with this bit where Jon was playing a guy who was trying to fit in. He was like an older guy, but trying to pretend that he was younger. And so I was playing his young son. So, but back at the time, you could sort of make these jokes. I was described as his semi-retarded son, Timmy. And so we shot all these scenes together. And then the final scene was outside the Paramount building in New York City at 1633 Broadway. He sort of closes the entire segment saying well, I've been caught. I'm really an old guy trying to get a job on this young TV show. And then I appear on screen, his semi-retarded son, and we go down the stairs together. And on the last take, I'm like, oh, we should hold hands. And then I'm going to get spooked by someone. And so he and I just hold hands walking down the stairs together. And then some lady just walks into the shot and I get scared of her and he calms me down. So that's the Jon Stewart thing. I felt that Brooke Shields, this was recently, she had a knee replacement surgery. And I know I have all sorts of problems with my legs. So we were in a dressing room, just the two of us talking about knee pain and leg pain and whatever. And she's like, I have a metal knee. And she lifts up her pants and she shows me this, the scar on her knee. And she's like, it's metal. And I'm asking her all these questions. She's like, oh, just feel it. So I just put my hand right on Brooke Shields' leg. And I'm thinking 12-year-old me would have just died. Blue Lagoon. I mean, I was so in love with her as a kid. Yeah. And that was 2 weeks that same week, I said hello to Henry Winkler in the hallway, and a week later, I met Mark Hamill. So like the 10-year-old Jack Helmuth was loving what I became. So I felt up Brooke Shields. So I felt her artificial knee, and finally I dry humped Vince Vaughn. This was this ridiculous thing I would do with Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy's 2 weeks to the day older than me. So we're the same age. We're both kids at Saturday Night Live. We're 24 years old. And we would do this stupid, childish thing where we would see each other in the hall. At Saturday Night Live, you just do bits with each other all the time. It's just bits. You're just always doing bits with everybody. And Jimmy and I had this silly, immature bit where we would see each other, and based on the way the other one looked at the other, you would know which one the aggressor was. And so you would then come over, rush up to the other one, beat the hell out of him, jump on top of him, and then dry hump him, and then run off and leave the other person in a heap. Real cerebral bit, right? real top of my intelligence type of game. So we would do this silly thing. And so Vince Vaughn was hosting. This was that narrow window of time where he was almost going to be like a leading man sex symbol. So he was on the cover of GQ magazine. He was promoting the remake of Psycho. So this was before he was going to be comedian Vince Vaughn, sort of the schlubby Wedding Crashers Vince Vaughn. This was like, he was going to be like a big A-list handsome movie star. So Vince Vaughn is hosting that way. And on a Tuesday nights, you stay until like 6 a.m. at Saturday Night Live, writing all the sketches. So, and the hosts usually stay till 2 or 3 a.m, hanging out in different offices, getting ready for what the sketches will be performed at the read through the next day on Wednesdays. So Vince happens to see me and Jimmy do this stupid bit. And as he's going into my boss, Steve Higgins' office, he says to me, "Hey, I saw what happened with Fallon over there. It'd be like, that better not happen to me. That was crazy." I'm like, okay. So I go tell Jimmy this, and he's like, "He said the same thing to me." And I'm like, okay, well, it's on. So we had a bunch of empty pizza boxes because we had pizzas that night. It's about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. We go grab these pizza boxes, and we find where Vince is. He's in Chris Kattan's office talking about some terrible sketch. And we knock on the door. "Did somebody order a pizza?" He looks up and he sees us there and he knows it's coming. So we hop on him. We beat the shit out of him. And then we dry hump him. And then we just leave. And Kattan is like, "What the hell is going on?" And so Vaughn is like, "Ah." And then every time we would see him for the rest of that week, he would see me and then like do anything he could to avoid me, like a victim of a sexual crime.
Right. That's funny.
And it was so much fun. But then we decided we were going to do it again. But this time we were going to do it at blocking. Now, blocking is where you're in the Saturday Night Live studio. It's basically a rehearsal. You're rehearsing your sketches with the cameras and the director and the other cast members and everything. And so Jimmy and I decided we're going to do it again, but we're going to surprise him during the middle of a scene. So we tell two people this. We tell the director, because we're going to be at least professional enough to tell the director this is going to happen. And we tell Will Ferrell, who is his co-star in the scene. So they start the scene. So Jimmy and I go to we're in the right place for this. We go to hair and makeup, and we get fake mustaches. We get pizza guy delivery outfits, and we get pizza boxes. So they start the scene. And he's doing this thing. It's the cat toy scene where Will Ferrell is testing cat toys. They start the scene. They begin. And then we walk onto the set. "Did somebody order a pizza?" He looks over startled and is like, "Oh, my God, no." We go over. We beat the hell out of him. We hump him. And then we run off. And then we go to the makeup room to return the mustaches because we race off. And all the camera guys, all these gruff union camera guys are like, "What the hell are these queers doing? What's going on? Why is this happening?" And so we go in and on the monitor, because every room has a monitor of the live feed of the rehearsal. So we see Vince still in a puddle, just like, "Oh, why did this happen to me?" And we realize that feed can be seen in every office at NBC, not only in New York, but in Burbank. So anyone watching the rehearsal of Saturday Night Live, which people do all the time, would have just seen that. And that was and then at the after party, P.S. Oh, and so when I dry humped him that first time, I ground his face into the carpet and I said, "Oh, Mr. Pretty Boy, you like this? Cover GQ. You smell good. So pretty." And so at the after party, Vince comes up to me, gives me a kiss and says, "Thank you. You made this week so fun because you didn't treat me like you treated me like everybody else. You just made me feel like part of the gang, and I really appreciate it."
That's very nice.
So that's my humping Vincent story.
I've heard good things about him, aside from being dry humped easily.
He was very, very nice. We actually played different games that week. It was fun.
He's tall too, right? He's very tall.
Super tall. It's like 6'5". I mean, he's huge. He's huge, and he smells like cinnamon.
Cinnabon.
Well, very good, Brian. Well, we both fooled each other.
Yeah, I guess so. Wow, and you actually were more devious because you added the bought me a beer line.
So, Brian.
Yes, Jack.
I know there are a lot of parents out there, and we've talked about this a little bit, but there are a lot of parents out there who are, of course, at home now faced with the sudden realization that they are full-time teachers. Mm-hmm. Myself included. My wife, when she's not working, teaches our kids as well. I've got a third grader and a second grader. And so many parents across the country are now homeschooling their children. I know you're a bit of an education expert. Mm-hmm. You have a degree in child psychology. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Degree in child psychology and what was it? Early education?
Early childhood development and education.
Okay, so that's a heck of a degree to have.
Yeah.
So I was thinking you'd be the perfect guy to sort of walk parents through some tips and tricks for homeschooling their kids.
Sure.
Sometimes it can be so hard to start the day because the kids are in their home and they're used to home just being a place of fun. If this is where I play games, this is where I watch TV, or just the dining room table where I eat my dinner is now my classroom table. So I was wondering, how do you get kids in the right frame of mind to start the day to let them know that it's time to learn?
Well, it's very similar to working at home.
Okay.
So when you work at home and you have a home office, that needs to be a place that you treat like an office you would go to. So you don't walk in your pajamas. You don't shuffle in a bathrobe. You get dressed. You treat it like you're going to an office. Work starts. So with the school, you want to recreate a school thing. So first of all, you got to dedicate a space in your house to being school. That's going to be the school space. Depending on your home setup, you take a small room, a closet, a sunroom, and you take it and you're going to paint a cinder block pattern on the walls.
Oh,
you want to make it look like a standard school. So cinder block walls, paint it a shade of gray, and then just stick up a few letters and things on the wall. You can find letters anywhere. If you have to, just cut them out of magazines, just tape them to the wall. Some semblance of recreating a classroom.
That makes a ton of sense.
Right. That's one thing. So, and that's going to be your classroom. You make sure there's no TVs in there, no video games. There's no, if you and your wife have a special room for yourselves, for your liaisons, whatever, like a love room, you don't want to do that. If you have a room, dedicated to wrapping Christmas presents, you need to, not get that stuff out of there. Mm-hmm. You just want to have a classroom. All right. And then you need consistency.
That makes sense. I think kids strive for consistency.
Right. You can't just have this random, I guess it's time for math. Oh, I guess it's time for English. You need to get them up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7. You can be flexible. And then you have your whole schedule of what you're going to teach the kids. So you get them up, they do calisthenics for say 30 minutes. All right. Then you do close order drill outside. Just march them in a circle or in a square pattern.
Okay.
And then you get I'm recreating a military school.
Oh, I see.
And then you get them back into the house. They have chow time. Eat your chow. Hurry up. Eat your chow. And then you get them to the classroom.
Okay. So then you're in the classroom. Now, you've talked about sort of the need to recreate the classroom, certainly the aesthetic of a classroom. What other ways, in your expert opinion, can you recreate the feeling, the vibe of being in a classroom? These are the things we're really looking to find.
Yeah, well, that's what we do. So my wife starts the morning with the kids.
Okay.
And she lets them know that, no matter what, she can't be fired. She says, I'm a member of the union. Worst case scenario, I'm going to be sent to a rubber room somewhere where I'm just going to spend my 8-hour day, but I'm still drawing a paycheck. So it doesn't matter. And then we recreate. So she'll give them bathroom breaks. Mm-hmm. And then what I do is I'll hide in the broom closet. And then it doesn't matter which one, because bullying is always random anyway. So one of them will be, I'll hear them walking through the house, going to the bathroom. I'll burst out of the broom closet and I will beat the stuffing out of them. I'll push them around. I'll call them loser boy. It depends on my mood.
Okay.
Loser boy, fatty, jerko, whatever it takes. 4 eyes. Sure. I told one to wear glasses.
Okay.
And so I could call him 4 eyes.
No kidding.
Yeah. Like whatever.
It's going to mess up his vision, but okay, go ahead.
So I've recreated the bullying experience. Every once in a while, I'll don like a mustache and sunglasses and I'll come into the room and stand on one of the kids' foot. And I'll be like, does that hurt? Does that hurt? Does that hurt?
Right.
Stuff. You just want to recreate the school experience.
Yep.
So that it's familiar to them.
Of course. That makes a ton of sense. How do you recreate, like, especially for older kids, how to deal with it? This is such an important lesson. There's so much to school beyond just book learning. How do you sort of recreate that feeling of like that creepy teacher who's like, is a little bit too friendly with the girls, or you know what I mean? Or that gym teacher is like, I'm not sure you should be in here.
Yeah. Well, like Mr. Gunderson. Yeah. So what I'll do is we have a lot of different wigs and stuff down in the basement. So I'll throw on a wig and I'll be Mr. Gunderson. And then I'll insist that one of the kids wear a long blonde wig. And then I'll just, as my kids, in his class, I'll just stand in the window leering at them.
Okay.
And they're in their blonde wig.
Right. Because then it's not daddy looking at them. It's
Mr. Gunderson.
The character.
Yeah. I even wrote Gunderson on my shirt.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. And it's a shirt I didn't waste the shirt because I had put it aside for paint rags. Mm-hmm. So now I just wear it and it says Gunderson when I'm playing that character.
Right. And so it sounds like you do a lot of role playing.
I do. Like sometimes I'll be like the mean-spirited middle school girl.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I'll just storm into the room and like, Becky doesn't like you and she never did. And then I walk out. Oh,
that's terrible.
Yeah. Just whatever I can to recreate the experience.
And is that the same character you use to pretend to have your period so you can get out of doing gym class?
Yep, we did it. So gym class is now they get an app that just tracks their steps.
Okay.
So we were outside and just kind of walking around in a circle. And then I collapsed to the ground and started clutching my stomach and saying, it hurts, it hurts. And then my wife said that I was dismissed.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, gosh. It's good to recreate these things. You guys are doing a great job. I'm glad that you're here to guide listeners through this because these are really good tips.
It's a tough time. I mean, their routine has been disrupted. So it's the responsibility of the parents to really recreate everything that they're missing. So for lunch, for example,
right.
We have them report to the kitchen where we set up a slop station. And my wife just dips a ladle into a bowl of something, smashes it on the tray, puts a bun on top of it. They can get some milk if they want. We don't have the little milk cartons. Right. So we just pour them into an empty tissue box. And then we just tell them, hurry up and drink it before it leaks out. So it looks like a giant milk box. Right. And then what we do to recreate the atmosphere of the dining hall is my wife and I just scream at the top of our lungs for 30 something minutes.
Yeah, it's funny because I could hear that you're a little bit hoarse. I mean, yesterday must have been a tough day at school.
It was. After lunch, there was recess.
Oh, okay. What's that like?
Well, we set up a makeshift jungle gym using a variety of discarded wood and some old radiators. And
we know you have that.
Yep. And the kids, they played on that, and then we chased each other around, played hide and seek and who's the loser, and just various middle school games.
I don't know who's the loser.
It's basically you say who's the loser, and then you point at the loser.
Oh, who's the loser in your family?
Whoever we did, my wife and I decide will be the loser that day.
That's nice.
We have meetings at night to plan out the next day's activities.
So it's important to plan, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you're in these characters, and you said you have a bunch of wigs downstairs, which is actually a red flag to a number of law enforcement agencies. Where do you get these wigs from? You told me once that you create your own wigs. What is that? Well,
I mean, you can make your own wigs, obviously, out of if you have a pet, the pet sheds. So,
sure.
And if you know anything about do it yourself, you need to have a glue gun.
Mhm.
So when you collect enough sheddings, you just get the glue gun and you just kind of do your thing with the glue gun. And then you have, a makeshift cat wig or dog wig.
Okay. Now, that can't look good.
It looks tousled.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the glue makes it impossible to comb. But it makes you look like a different person. And that's what you're really going for.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Now, what do you have a tip for? Because you've made so many wigs. You've told me you've made thousands of wigs. Is there a tip that you have for people to make a wig who don't have pets?
Yeah. Well,
a lot of people with allergies out there.
Everybody has spaghetti.
Of course.
Because clearly everybody loaded up on toilet paper and pasta.
Yep.
Weeks ago. So you boil the spaghetti and then you can, drape it over your head and then using a glue gun, just kind of seal it all together. So you can give yourself technically long hair. And then, everybody has spray paint or magic markers. You just color the pasta.
Okay.
And then you have an impromptu pasta wig.
Pasta wig.
Yeah.
That seems like a character out of a horror movie.
That's exactly so funny you say that because that's what my kids said.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
What was that interaction like?
Well, I said, I put it on and I strolled up and I said, "Hey, I'm Annie. Do you want to go out?" And then my son said, "What's wrong with you, Dad? You look like a character out of a horror film."
Oh, okay.
And again, I'm just trying to recreate the high school and middle school experience.
And how do you guys handle, that makes a lot of sense. How do you guys handle the foreign exchange students?
Oh, well, that I have a different wig.
Okay. Oh. And
I have a red-haired wig. And I play Enya, the angry German.
Oh, okay.
So I'll put the red wig on and they might be in the middle of their English class or history or whatever my wife's teaching. And I'll just storm into the room and just like, "I want to go back to my native country. I hate it here." And then I'll stomp my fists and throw a little fit and then start screaming in what I think is German.
In what you think is German?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it sounds angry, it's German.
That's absolutely true. And what about seating for lunch? Because that might be the biggest dynamic, maybe in all of a school. The lunchroom dynamic, who sits with who,
right,
who's isolated. How do you recreate those social, almost political dynamics?
Well, we have we reduce the number of seats in the kitchen so that there aren't enough for the four of us. And then what we'll do is, my wife, after she's done serving them slop, she'll don a different wig and then sit at the table. And then we'll pretend like we're the cool kids. Mm-hmm. And when one of our sons tries to sit down, we'll be like, "Excuse me, what are you doing?"
Right.
And just kind of, give them the eye until they get the message and go to the living room and sit at the coffee table.
Now, I don't want to undercut your teaching because that's good advice, but you did that pre-quarantine though.
Yeah, I want to build sturdy, strong children. Used to being told that they can't sit there. Like their dad.
Oh, okay. Right. Huh. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So getting into the teaching world, how do you, what do you draw from? How do you teach kids subjects that you may not know a lot about?
Well, I mean, I leave it up to my wife, which can have detrimental effects. So, my wife, English is her second language, and she speaks it. She's fluent and speaks it better than a lot of natives. But she misunderstood when I said social studies, and so she was playing YouTube videos on social justice.
Oh no!
Yeah. So now the kids have they have pronouns they want to be called by, and everything upsets them.
Yeah, and so your kids lost their sense of humor?
They totally lost their sense of humor.
Oh,
they used to have.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know. I feel bad because it used to be good. It was entertaining to me, and now we can't even watch The Office at night because my son finds it so distasteful and problematic.
Wow. So that's for those of us though who are patriotic enough to marry within our own country. That's not going to be an issue. But I think what the issue is for a lot of us is that we don't remember things like, let's say I'm rusty on the American Revolution, mm-hmm. but that's where my kids are in their learning process. How do you teach a subject that you don't know?
Well, you can always, there's always a lecture out there on YouTube that somebody's giving that's somewhat related to what you're hoping the kids will learn. Mm-hmm. So we found a channel called History Zone.
Okay.
Which, explains how the Jews tried to prevent America from leaving the colonies. And it's put on by a group out of Idaho. It seems very educational to me. I had no idea. They talk about the history of the American Revolution and how George Soros tried to prevent it, to turn it into a communist enclave. And, so the kids are getting their education there right now.
Sure. That's interesting. Do you worry that maybe some of that might not be true?
I can't worry right now. If it is, then we'll come back to it later. My field of expertise with history is really about World War II. So, I try to direct all the history talk to Auschwitz.
Oh, really? So could you give me an example of how you would direct something that way?
Yeah. Genghis Khan killed a lot of people. Speaking of, have you heard of Auschwitz?
That's okay. It's an interesting transition. How would you do that if you were, let's say you were teaching multiplication?
Well, I mean, if you have a trainload of 10,000 people and your capacity for your crematorium is only 1,000 people per hour, then how long is it going to take for you to get rid of all evidence of your horrible crimes against humanity?
Yikes. That seems grim. Like, I feel like maybe you don't need to.
That's all I know, Jack.
How does your school day end?
Well, we don't have the bell that the school has. Mm-hmm. So we do have a smoke detector. So okay. At the end of the school day, I'll just go to the smoke detector and I'll light a tissue on fire, which will set off the fire alarm. And that's the indication that the day's over. And then we say, see you tomorrow, kids. And then well, every once in a while, I'll put on a different wig and maybe like a big flak jacket. And then I'll just grab one of my kids and I'll just meet me outside in the parking lot, loser.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And then you'll just beat the hell out of them again?
They never show up.
Oh, yeah. Cowards.
Yeah, that's what I said.
So how do you, though, this is a great question. This is a great closing question. How do you deal with a cowardly child?
Cowardice is lack of bravery. I hired a gentleman to put on a tiger costume and pretend to maul my wife. And then my son and I stood there in the window looking at her being attacked outside. And I said, well, what are you going to do about it? And he said, but Daddy, why don't you do something about it? You're the daddy. And I just looked at him. I'm like, I'm a coward. How about you? And then I cocked my head.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. It's fantastic. Brian, I feel ready to go and tackle the next couple of weeks and homeschool the heck out of my kids.
Mm-hmm. Good. You're going to have to. Yeah. And you have no choice anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So make the most out of it.
I feel like I really learned. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. That was questionable material. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure to review the podcast. Make sure to visit qmpodcast.com for episodes, show notes, and bonus material.